And we are arrived. We have reached the final topic of today's stream.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Any other random stuff we come up? Oh, well,
Yeah.
I'm gonna thank David for turning me on to Big Train with
Oh,
the
excellent.
review of their latest album. I picked that up. I've only listened to it 3 times so far, but I do like it. But I need to spend more time with it. Um, that's one thing I wonder about when you guys come across a new album. You know, when you do a review of that, how many listens do you give it? Because a lot of albums you need to spend a lot of time with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're
Well,
right.
just to give you a clue, I think I listened to the Big Train new album about 7 or 8 times.
Okay, yeah,
But
that's
I've still got to do, and this album I think came out in October. I've still got the review of Roger Waters doing Dark Side of the Moon that I've been
okay.
chewing over for
The
weeks on end.
the
And I've
Redux,
got,
yeah,
yeah, Redux. I've got something to say about that album. But even though I've listened to it 20, 25 times now, I'm still formulating my thoughts. Because I know when that album came out, it was very controversial, and people have strong opinions about Roger Waters because of his politics and his relationship or feud with David Gilmour. And I thought, well, I'm not gonna. And a lot of people put videos out, and I'm not gonna jump on that particular bandwagon. No. I'm gonna listen to this as if it's just a piece of art. I'm gonna take what I think about the artist out of the equation, because there's a lot of people that if I was really interested in the personalities and the backstory of some of these artists that I like Van Morrison, who's got a terrible reputation, I wouldn't listen to the music. And for me, I put that to one side. I listen to the music, and I've been chewing over Dark Side of the Moon Redux for about 6 months now.
yeah.
The video will come out.
Trust the art, not the artist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because if I canceled everybody who I didn't like their politics or whatever, I wouldn't have a lot to listen to, or read, or watch.
Yeah.
I would listen to the Carpenters all night long.
Have you heard that story about Karen Carpenter?
No, and I don't want to.
You don't want to know either.
No. Oh yeah, it is. Yeah, I know. The picture that yeah. No, but you're right. You're right. My wife, she gave me for my birthday the last album of PG Harvey's, and I'm still not able to talk about that one on one of my video. I listened to maybe 2 or 3 times. It's not enough.
I haven't listened to it yet. I've had it for about 3 months, and I haven't listened to it yet.
Mike from Mike's Vinyl Spiral talk about that one. A lot of people in the German vinyl community, member of the German VC, and so I give a try. It's not but okay. I think if anyone
any questions or any
remarks,
thoughts?
Well, FVA, now that you are in a bigger city, do you find yourself going to more mainstream concerts now?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah,
you
definitely.
certainly have the opportunity to see them now.
Yeah, like I said, Peter Gabriel last year, and only talking about festival. As Montreal is a great city for culture, a lot of different population, the French-speaking part, the English-speaking part, a lot of immigrants from South America. So the festival, the local bands, they play in a small clubs or a small bars. It's sometimes really interesting, that fusion between folk and ska and Cuban music. It's So a concert, but a great concert, the price, you have to consider that aspect. So I would love to go to see every month, but it's so freaking expensive sometimes. So I have to
Right.
think about that.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah,
it was one of the great things about living in a city like Chicago, because when bands come to the States,
They all go there.
there are three
yeah,
cities they're definitely going to play, and that's LA, Chicago, and New York. You know,
yeah,
Yeah.
every band stopped here.
Yeah.
So
You know, back in you mentioned this a bit earlier, Steve, but back in the 70s, you could see these bands in small venues, 2,000 seaters, 3,000 seaters,
mhm.
and the ticket prices were reasonable. Um,
I mean, even
you
when
know,
I
it's
saw
price to go to a football game. You could buy a ticket to see a famous rock band instead.
yeah,
Now I had tickets to see Nick Cave before the lockdown, when the lockdowns came in, and and the gig was cancelled, or the tour was cancelled. And then when he came back out on tour, the ticket prices were just just astronomical. And I thought, and it's big arena stuff, and I love Nick Cave. I mean, he's like my favorite artist of the last 15, 20 years. But I want to see him in a theater. I don't want to see him in a great big shed. And we've got a great symphony hall here in Birmingham, and I might go and see Yes, who are coming May or June. There's still some tickets up in the gods, so because I only ever saw them with Trevor Horn on out front. I never saw them with John Anderson. So, and of course, there's John Davison there who's fronting the band. So it's not the real Yes. Some people will say, but I'm kind of curious to see whether they can pull it off on stage.
what size venue is that?
It's a purpose-built symphony hall. So the
So
acoustics are amazing.
right, yeah. So what, like a 4,000 seater?
Yeah, well, maybe 3,000 seater, I think. It's
Yeah.
just a beautiful building. I've seen so many bands, artists there, loads of classical concerts. So Emmylou there, Mary Chapin Carpenter there. I've seen Steve Hackett there. Springsteen there doing the Ghost of Tom Joad tour, which was amazing. But yeah, fantastic. But of course, Birmingham being a bit, on the huge side, it's got great big sheds as well. I saw Gabriel here in one of the sheds back in October, I think it was. Deep Purple and Blue Oyster Cult and all that sort of stuff. So I've kind of been put off by those big gigs and the expense of going. And I'm just, as I get older, I'm just less tolerant of other people. Because I had this debate with a really good friend of mine. Because I'm not big on audience participation when it comes to, sing along a Bruce, if you like, on a Springsteen concert and everything. And we had this debate some years ago, and I said, look, my relationship is not with my fellow audience members. My relationship is with the artist and the music the artist is pumping out. So for me, I go to these gigs and I'm in the zone. I could be on my own in the arena or in the concert hall, and I'm trying to soak in as much of that experience as I possibly can. And but you go to some of these gigs. I remember, I saw Springsteen in Paris some years ago, and some French guy got overexcited and jumped on my back. And I just thought, I've had enough. I'm too old for this shit anymore. I don't want to do it anymore. So, the idea of seeing Mark Farner in a little pub somewhere or a club, that kind of is more intriguing to me now than the big arenas.
The stunt rock brought up a great point, because I was going to ask you, because you're living there, why did so many great bands in the late 60s, early 70s come out of Birmingham, that area? I mean, because you've got Zeppelin and Uriah Heep, and I mean, Jeff Lynne's from Birmingham, and there's countless numbers of bands. I mean,
Judas Priest,
was it something in Judas Priest? Was it something in the water or what?
I think it was. I'll tell you what. The Beatles put Liverpool on the map. Really.
Yeah.
I'm not even sure. I mean, I'm too young to remember Liverpool in my. As a young boy, I'd heard of London, I'd heard of New York, I'd heard of Paris. I hadn't really heard of Liverpool or Birmingham, but they put Liverpool on the map, and there was Jerry and the Pacemakers as well, And I think there was and it was such a fertile period for pop and rock music. And I think there was in the UK at the time were, you know, I mean, I'm not a defender of the UK in this regard, but they were undoubtedly pioneers, and some of the biggest names in
Yeah.
rock did come out of the UK
This
Yeah.
is
and America, but the UK was really pivotal in that.
this is what
And I
Graham.
think there was almost like a competition between the major cities. So there was a Newcastle scene, like the Animals came out of there. And then later on, you got Mark Knopfler and Sting came out of Newcastle, Lindisfarne, if you're interested in folk rock. But Birmingham had a scene, the bands that you mentioned, and that was more bluesy based, more pop based in Liverpool, more bluesy based in Newcastle as well. And of course, back in the 90s, there was a Bristol scene as well, the likes of Massive Attack and all that. That was a bit of a scene going on. So I think it was almost, I'll say one final thing. I think part of it might be, this is me pure speculation, is that London is so dominant in the UK. It overwhelms everything else culturally.
Yeah.
And I think there's a determination in these other cities and the culture of all these other cities to say, we're going to make our mark, we're going to stake our claim to part of this scene. And so, Manchester, Liverpool, Newcastle, Birmingham, and so on, almost as a bit of a pushback to London.
Yeah, because Stunt Rock mentions Birmingham it's way more working class. I know it's always been kind of like Pittsburgh is the U.S. comparison for Birmingham. They're both steel cities, and that's why Judas Priest named the album British Steel.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, this is
I
what
think
Graham.
all it takes is one band to make it big, and all the A&R guys come into that city and say, who else is in this scene that we've never heard of?
Right. Yeah, it was the big thing with grunge rock here, how Seattle became,
Yeah. If there's a book to be made, they'll be there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think there is also a difference south and north of England. I heard Graham Nash. He came from Blackpool, I think.
Oh, okay, Lancashire,
yeah. And he were mentioning that. Yeah, at the beginning they were like this antagonism between the people they had fun in the south part of England and the worker at the north. And
I think the other thing is that, I mean, a lot of bands, a lot of music critics who are based in London, always based in London, they don't like to travel. They like to party. They like to be in the scene, on the scene. So when you get bands coming out of the provinces, unless they're absolute giants like Zeppelin or the Beatles or Sabbath, the music critics down in London kind of think, well, they're going to have to be really special for us to pay attention. And so I think that creates that antagonism to say, to hell with these guys, we're going to fight our corner here and make sure that we get noticed.
Yeah, I think in France it's pretty much the same. You have, if you want to have a chance to have a career, you have to go to Paris. You can keep your southern part identity, but it will be hard if you, as an actor, or as a band, or as a singer, if you stay in your home country, in your hometown. You have to go to Paris because everything is.
Yeah, I mean, I've always had that chip on my shoulder about LA and New York, being from Chicago. Chicago is more of the working class city of those three cities. And press wise, like you say about London with the critics, there is a big time East Coast bias as far as journalists are considered. Okay. And then you get the Hollywood contingent. So, Chicago kind of gets squeezed out. It's almost like Chicago's opinion doesn't matter.
Yeah, but it's the city known for a city of the blues, so it's a pity.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And interesting questions. What do you think, David, of Van Halen?
I love him. I'd never really. I think it's a bit hit and miss with me with hard rock. So, brought up with Deep Purple and Zeppelin, Rush, back in, I saw Rush in the 70s a couple of times as well. And I think when the Van Halen's almost like the last great hard rock band that I really hand on heart say I really love. Because the new wave of British heavy metal that came along in the 80s kind of just passed me by, really. But Van Halen's first album, I mean, I love in Talking About Love, Running with the Devil, but for me, it's 1984 is the album. It's like the greatest hits to me. I mean, you just play that. I used to have, always remember we had a house party, and I used to share this house with some friends, and we had this house party, and I set up the music in this suburban area, and I remember we're playing Jump, Turn Up to 11, all the way through the neighborhood, and I just kept playing it. I just kept putting it on and walking out the street and say, God, can I get any louder? It's fantastic. So I love Van Halen, although I never saw them live. Never saw them.
Only saw them one time.
Yeah, I saw better than live. I never saw them live, but my favorite soccer team in France, when they enter into the pitch, it's always the music that is played in Marseille. So just for the record.
No, I
Okay.
didn't say it's a working class city. It's a more of a working class city than LA or New York.
Yeah.
I mean, New York, it's the financial center of the world, not just of America. And then LA, you've got Hollywood. So
yeah, we haven't really touched upon I mean, a little bit of discussion earlier about blues music, but we haven't touched on soul and all that Midwestern stuff. All those black artists. I mean, I love Gil Scott-Heron, Stevie Wonder, just so many others. And I do find it quite tricky is that when you listen to prog music or hard or 70s kind of hard rock, soul music, being brought up in that era, soul music was kind of throwaway in those days. I mean, Stevie Wonder's albums and the Norman Whitfield Temptations albums and such like kind of came after the Motown's heyday, and Stax had kind of almost been and gone, although Isaac Hayes was still pumping out stuff. It just wasn't in the mainstream. And so that's the sort of stuff I've gone back and discovered over the years, but it's not right in my heart the way that early 70s rock and prog rock really, really grabbed me and still has me there today.
Yeah, it's not music I ever owned growing up, I never had a Supremes album or a Temptations album or a Jackson 5 album or a Stevie Wonder album. I mean, I was listening to, what most white suburban kids were listening to, I mean.
Yeah, but what's going on, to me, it's almost like a classic rock album. It's not rock at all, but I can rank in the classic rock in the classic albums anyway.
Well, it's a piece of art, isn't it? In the way that the 60s Motown were, and this is really unfair on 60s Motown, but it was almost like they were pumping out albums where the first track was the hit and the rest of it was filler, and it was bang, bang, bang. Whereas when you got around to the early 70s and Marvin Gaye's transition into say what's going on and let's get it on and so on, those were statements, they were artistic statements where they brought the artist had broken away from the somewhat oppressive management who had previously told them what they were allowed to do. And I think that was the big change, wasn't it?
Yeah, I read a book written by David Hepworth, a famous journalist, called The Golden Era, or How the LP Saved Our Lives. And he describes the period from 1967 up until 1982 as a golden era of the LP. Because after that, Walkman home taping killed the way we consume music. And prior, the year of the singles, like garage rock. Everything university label owned singles then disappeared. So it's only a shortened period of time. Wouldn't say in the 90s they were bad albums. They were albums as well, but the golden era of the LP is not 1962. It's probably between some Yeah.
Well, what happened too after album sales dropped off, the art of sequencing was lost too. It was so important with an album. What started side one, what ended side one, first song on side two, and then what ended the album. But when you started recording, thinking you've got a 70 to 80-minute canvas, it seemed like sequencing didn't matter as much.
Yeah.
Yeah. I totally agree. Yeah, and this was bad because I didn't have a lot of money when I was 14 or 16, so I bought only mainly greatest hit compilation, best of, and because I just have wanted to have an overview of a Dire Straits or U2 or whatever, but it's bad because Hendrix, for instance, put so much effort. You know, the sequencing was very important not only for him. But yeah, totally agree. Stun Rock. Wait, are you guys saying nostalgia?
Not growing. So, are you guys saying nostalgia is your drive? For me, I endeavor to be the absolute opposite of a nostalgic listener. I try and take the music on its own terms. So I often listen in the dark in this place between the speakers. I'm not interested so much in the backstory. I never use music to rekindle memories from my early years. If I've retained memories, it's incidental. The music still has to stand up to me today, for me today. So yeah, nostalgia is not my drive.
Me neither. I buy records. It's in my life. It's right now. When I travel to the UK, I find a UK press 1967. I buy it right now. I'm using right now, so I share with the people on internet 2024. I have friends we can discover. It's not a nostalgic thing, so it's part of my today's experience. And I never lived through these years. And I can be nostalgic if I will be back in France in 2 weeks. So if my sister plays something we were listening to when we were kids, maybe nostalgia, yeah, but not in my collection, not in the way that the music that I love, I wanted to buy or discover. What is for you, Steve?
Well, to me, the nostalgia is just a byproduct. I mean, it's something that happens while I'm listening. I don't intentionally grab an album and say, I want to go back to 1972. I mean, I might play Black Sabbath Volume 4, which is for 72, and it may remind me of something. I mean, that happens. But I love coming across albums from the 60s and 70s that I never heard, that are completely new to me. It's a new experience. But also, I mean, like all of these albums that I showed you, like Riverside and No Sound. I mean, it's new music, and I love discovering that too.
It
So
is it is new music, yeah, yeah.
to me, it is one of the great things about the VC is people turning you on to bands you never would have come across. I mean, sometimes somebody will talk about them. I'll be like, okay, I'll check out, just because I still like to buy music the way I bought it when I was growing up, where I might only know one song from the radio, and that was it. I had nowhere else. There was no internet. There was no MTV. I had nowhere else to hear any of those other songs. So for me, a lot of albums were always blind buys, unless you had a friend who already had that album. So I still do that. If somebody recommends an album on YouTube, I'll listen to maybe 3 or 4 songs, 30 seconds of each song. That's all I want to hear. And from that, I'll say, okay, maybe I will buy it. That's how I do a blind buy now. I mean, like Big Train, I didn't listen to any of that, David. It was just based on your review. And so, I'll do that.
I think it's also, I think one of, people who have a more casual attitude to music, I think often use it as a memory jogger. It's a kind of a bit of a nostalgia thing, and it's the music of their youth. And certainly for me, what I buy new music all the time, but it's new music to me. So I've got a vast jazz collection that I'm scratching the surface on. And I know it's going back. I'm going back to discover stuff, but it's new to me. It's nothing to do with being a memory jogger or a nostalgia trip for me. It's kind of what's the essence of this music that is going to turn me on today in the moment. Can I give it full concentration and get something back from it rather than just noise? So I keep buying new stuff all the time.
Yeah,
I agree.
yeah.
So I think it's time to hit the button. Hit the subscription button to these guys. So subs to David Atkinson, Life Matters, and Steve, all the words of stage. I will put the link in the descriptions. What is your experience? Did you enjoy these 2 hours and 23 minutes that we've been having together?
I mean, thank you for inviting me. I mean, time flew by, and it was great to get to know you guys a little better. And because I will always say, to me, the best thing about the live streams is the chat before and after. It's not necessarily the live stream itself, but that little bit of time off air, you get to know people.
Exactly. Yeah. And I'm really happy you accept my invitation. You guys, the concept I'm trying to explore, reaching out to people, not waiting that someone is coming. Is great. Someone is coming, watching, commenting, but in the near future, I'll plan on more streams like that when I will be reaching out people. Like the first stream I had, when we had one Nadine from Germany, very into soul music, one guy from the US, very into jazz, and bringing the people together, finding a common ground. This is what a community is all about. This is how I see things, and I will definitely try more live stream like that. So
I think, just for my part, I think it's been great, and I think as Steve said, time's flown past really quick. I think it's been stimulating hearing you guys talk about your experiences and where we've got an overlap. I think that's absolutely great. I think it's I enjoyed for all the reasons that you guys have mentioned. So I'm hoping that I'm going to be able to participate with you guys again in the future, and maybe others as well. I'm not sure if I can master the technology to host one, but we'll see where that takes us.
Before FVA, before you sign up, you have to show Spectrum Archives comment there. That's last one. That might be the comment of the day.
No comment, no reaction from my end.
you will never lose your hair, FVA. I mean,
no, you can just tell, can't you? You can tell.
You always have a full head of hair.
Yeah.
I already had your haircut. I will show you maybe off, but anyway. Yeah. So once again, thank you very much for all the people who are tuning in. Replay available. Next week, next Saturday, I will be hosting a very special live stream with a legend, a guy who is a record store dealer in the Netherlands. And he was like a zillion time all the way to South America, digging vinyl in Peru, in Colombia. He does the trade show in Milan, in Barcelona several times a year. And we will be having a very nice discussion. So you can hope you guys you can tune in. And
that could be more special than this one.
Everything is special. You guys are special. I'm special. Yeah. No, I overuse that word special. I agree. When I rewatch my video, special episode is special. I'm French, in France everything is so special. No, it's a joke.
Yeah, it's been really good. Well done. Thanks for hosting it.
Yeah. Thank you guys. Stay tuned for next chapter. Bye-bye.
Alrighty. Goodbye.
See you, everyone.